All right, Keith Thurman back in action, man. Dude talks a good game, saying he wants Errol Spence Jr. and told Terence Crawford to send me the contract if you don't believe me. So one time Thurman is back. Gotta like it, man. Gotta like it. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because where else does he have to go? Let's talk about what Keith Thurman got to say about Errol and Terence Crawford in this video. All right, welcome back. Now, to my loyal subscribers, I hope you've noticed something about the channel lately that I have been putting out more Keith Thurman videos because I am excited about the welterweight division for whenever we come back and the fact that Keith Thurman is out here talking a little smack. Now, if you don't know why that's so important why that's important to me for Keith Thurman to be doing this, I have to admit it that I am a Keith Thurman fan, okay? Or I was a big Keith Thurman fan, but then Keith Thurman just hit this time in his life, maybe like a 2.5 year time where his ego just seemed to get so big, but as his ego got huge, his activity decreased, and now he finds himself the odd man out at welterweight in the welterweight division. He went from a unified champion holding the WBA and the WBC belt to somebody without a belt that's gonna have a hard time getting somebody to fight him. And as a result, he's out there doing what a contender needs to do. Out there calling out the champs, trying to put himself in a position to get back in the mix. I like it, Keith. I like it. Now, who he's talking about is obviously the guy he wants, the guys with the belt. Those are Errol Spence Jr., Manny Pacquiao, and Terence Crawford. And he had said maybe it was about 2 weeks ago where Keith Thurman came out and said that he's looking to come back and dominate the welterweight division again like he did before. And all these dudes are his targets. But here's the problem for Keith right now. The problem for Keith is that everybody else kind of has their plate filled. You have Manny Pacquiao, who ain't interested really in a rematch with Keith Thurman, and he's not, based on what Andre Berto shared about that fight, which was that Keith Thurman put a lot bigger whooping on Manny Pacquiao than a lot of people want to admit, or a lot of Manny Pacquiao fans want to see, because Manny Pacquiao won the fight. Personally, I thought that was a very, very close fight. The thing that really gave Manny Pacquiao the edge in that fight over me was after he hit Keith Thurman with that very, very nasty body shot that basically folded him up and sent him into retreat for a good amount of time. But other than that, I thought it was a pretty good, pretty even fight. Considering Manny Pacquiao was that level of fighter and Keith Thurman had one tune-up after a 2-year layoff, coming up with different type of with all kind of different injuries. Some people say the injuries are real. Some of the injuries are definitely real. Some people say that a couple of the injuries that he's talking about aren't real. But regardless, for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he was injured when he fought Josecito Lopez, and when he fought, he was injured during that time frame. That's a lot of rust to get off of you with just one fight with Josecito Lopez. He goes right into the fight with Manny Pacquiao and he loses, but Manny Pacquiao's not trying to go back there with Keith Thurman, especially if Keith Thurman gets, at this point in time, Keith Thurman has to be considered an active fighter because he's had 2 fights in the last 18 months. That's pretty consistent for Keith Thurman. So, but Manny Pacquiao's out of it, which pretty much, in my opinion, leaves the people that he's talking about. Errol Spence Jr. Oh, he also said, of course, that he's interested in the rematches with Sean Porter and Danny Garcia, but Danny Garcia is busy with Errol Spence Jr., so you can take Errol Spence Jr. out of that for Keith Thurman, because he's fighting either Danny Garcia, who's the WBC mandatory, or Manny Pacquiao, who has the WBA belt to unify 3 belts, right? one of those two. Terence Crawford is a little bit off the road for him. I mean, down the road for him. So that's Errol Spence. Manny Pacquiao was fighting Mikey. He's either going to fight Mikey Garcia, Danny Garcia, or Errol Spence. That's what he said. Terence Crawford is, for him to say that he would fight Keith Thurman would fight Terence Crawford. I think that is a great fight. I think that's a great fight for Keith Thurman and a great fight for Terence Crawford. For Keith Thurman, it's a chance to get a shot at a belt against a top pound for pound fighter. If he was able to pull that fight off, it puts him right back in the top, consideration for one of the top fighters. And at least I will be saying, if he was able to beat Terence Crawford, that means that just shows you that he was just still a little bit rusty against against Manny Pacquiao. And, when he knocked the rust all the way off and he was all the way back into, fighting at 100%, he was able to beat Terence Crawford. I think that is a great fight. It's not an easy fight for Terence Crawford either, man, because like I said, there's certain people in boxing that cause everybody problems when they fight them. I think that is the case with Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman has beaten Danny Garcia. He's beaten Sean Porter. He gave a very good fight to Manny Pacquiao, despite all the things that I mentioned. Keith Thurman is not an easy out. He's not an easy out. Now, the risk for Keith Thurman in fighting Terence Crawford, obviously, is that, you'll be jumping off a back-to-back loss. If you lose, that's back-to-back losses. So where are you going to go after that? But I think that's his best fight. So for Keith Thurman, the fights in the order of fights that I'd like to see him have, you guys got to excuse me, man. My work is just send me a ton of text. Or emails alerts, and I can't edit it out, man. I just gotta run with it. But anyway, because it's real press for time today. But anyway, Keith, that's the best option for Keith. That's the absolute best option for Keith Thurman. And for Terence Crawford, there's not a better option out there. You have Sean Porter, you have Ugas, you have Keith Thurman, and Kell Brook. Those are four names of people that I would take, for Terence Crawford a fight, because it would prove that the guy is it would prove that he's a top welterweight. And I mean, prove it. Not I believe it, right? Like, you can look at him and say, yeah, I believe that he's one of the top welterweights. I think that's safe to say. I think that's a reasonable conclusion for people to draw, is that that Terence Crawford is one of the top fighters pound for pound, that Terence Crawford is one of the top welterweights. But you can't really see it from who he fought, because if you look at all the guys we named, the Manny Pacquiaos, Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, Errol Spence Jr., Kell Brook, all of those guys, all of them have fought better competition at welterweight than Terence Crawford has. And quite honestly, there's an argument to be made that Yordenis Ugas has fought better competition at 147 pounds than Terence Crawford, just by the fact that a lot of people think that he beat Sean Porter. And I do believe he also fought Ray Robinson, if I'm not sure. That's another, dark horse out there, Ray Robinson, man, that I'd like to see get a shot against some of these guys. But it's just a really good fight for Terence, to elevate Terence Crawford and kill this narrative that he hasn't really fought anybody, because that narrative for Terence Crawford is taken over the show. It's taken over the show, and it's not even something where anybody really can debate about it, man. You can't, because at 135 pounds, you really couldn't say anything, man. He was new. He didn't fight there that long, but he beats Ricky Burns over there in the UK. He gets a cup. I think Yuriorkis Gamboa might have been at 135 pounds, but then at 140 pounds, he unified all the belts. But you're talking about Postal, Diaz, and Dungo. It's just not, it's like, he did it, but it's not the best competition in the world. Similar to when Alexander Usyk got it at cruiserweight. It's like, yeah, you did it, but who'd you really beat? Who did you beat, to unify all the belts? Well, so it just kind of makes it look just a little bit thin. So, but still, Terence Crawford had that accolade that he got all the belts. He did it. Those are the champions. He's the best at 140. Can't say anything about it if a guy's that much better than everybody in the weight class. But now that he's at 147 pounds and he's been at 147 pushing on 2 years now without anybody that's serious competition, I think he should run out there, and Bob Arum should definitely try to send a contract over to Keith Thurman to see if it can happen. But you know what Bob Arum's going to do? Bob Arum's going to say, nope, too risky. But Keith Thurman is going to ask for too much money, so I ain't trying to hear it because they're just not going to try to invest the money in that. But all in all, man, I'm definitely hoping that Keith Thurman can get back in the mix, that he gets some of these fights that he's calling for. Anyway, you let me know how you think that'll play out and whether or not Keith Thurman can be one of the top welterweights again. Let me know in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.